All right, everybody. We know what time it is. It is that amazing time of day where I go live to bring you yet another amazing guest. Tonight we have an absolute I'm going to call her fan favorite because I said so, right? But I know it's going to be a conversation that you absolutely love and that you are going to enjoy. So, of course, you know where you are. Empower with Sharonda. Empower yourself, mind, body, and spirit. And you know who I am. Your wonderful, amazing host, if I must say so myself, Sharonda McDaniel. We're here for another week. It is Wednesday. It is 7 o'clock, and it is an amazing time of day where I am absolutely looking forward to being able to deliver information with you today. We're here to empower you. We are here to uplift you. And most importantly, we're here to show you exactly how you can be your own level up. We've had two amazing guests so far, and we are on episode 3. Time is definitely flying. But today we're going to be talking about how you are able to truly define yourself and what that means for you, your brand, your business, and even your personal life. Enough about me, and let's talk about this amazing, beautiful young lady that is going to be on our show tonight. Her name is Victoria Baylor, right? She is a mindset and clarity coach, TED Talk speaker, author, and most importantly, entrepreneur. And she's going to be sharing with you exactly how you can define yourself and knowing who you really are. I am going to bring her up because I'm telling you, the very first time I talked to her, I was definitely more than motivated. She had me excited. And I know that as an audience, you guys are going to absolutely enjoy her. Welcome to the show, Victoria. I am very happy to have you. And it is a privilege to be able to host you on the show today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Rhonda. I love your energy. I wish I could just bottle it up. Sing it first thing in the morning.
So
thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
But thank you. Sometimes I wish I can probably bottle it up myself. Catch me early in the morning, and I promise you, it is not the same energy. But I have given a very brief introduction of who you are. But right now, I want to use this moment for you to share with the audience. Tell us exactly who you are, who is Victoria, and what do you need the audience to know? Exactly who you
Oh my gosh, I think for anybody to answer that question, it's always a loaded question. One's identity is, how do you really pare it down, right? But in essence, as you mentioned, I am Victoria Baylor. I am the middle child of two parents, two siblings. But I was born and raised into a military home. It's funny, I actually never even say that. So I was a military brat growing up, and found my way through all these years to end up in the position I am in now as a mindset and business clarity coach, working with phenomenal high achieving women, helping them declutter their mindset baggage and pinpoint their brilliance, leveraging that and monetizing that to increase, of course, impact and profits. To be quite honest, I think I've been a lot of things throughout my life. Like most people, life is like a book. It's like a book with multiple chapters. And to be quite honest, I think it's so important to highlight where you started because it really does impact where you ended up. So I didn't start, I didn't wake up one day and say, oh, I want to work with women and just really help tap into their brilliance. It kind of was an evolution for me. So I really did start my career choice when I was 8 years old, and I saw Jacques Cousteau, just a glimpse of him on TV, got really captivated and decided from that point on I'd be a marine biologist. And I ran that track, went to college, did very well, ended up working at an oceanographic institute, doing molecular microbiology research, traveling around, hanging out in the ocean, all that kind of cool stuff. And I say all that to say, because it's a huge part of who I am, is that at some point I lost my identity. So I made the cardinal mistake, as so many women do. I defined myself by that role, that dream. Since I was 8, that's who I was going to be. And I managed to slip through the cracks of my own self-knowledge. So needless to say, when one loses their identity, their confidence actually it's not too far far behind to fall. So I kind of lost my confidence in that whole standpoint and just really had to take a look in the mirror and ask myself, who are you, Victoria? Because I had all kinds of gifts and abilities and other things I could do. But because I had such a narrow view of my talents, I really didn't know how to take all of that into consideration. So fortunately for me, I call that my serendipitous God wink moment. That was the time I feel like my calling and purpose became very apparent. And I use the analytical skills that I'm really good at, my ability to see things, encourage people. I can see people's gifts, their abilities, connect the dots, strategize. I used it on myself first. And then I was able to recover and rediscover who I was as a person and really put those gifts into work and in the arena of really empowering and helping women. And I've been doing it ever since. So that was the best fallout of my life because I found myself, reclaimed myself, developed myself, and I am living out my purpose today. So that's who I am.
Well, that is absolutely amazing. And I promise you, in that introduction, you have me with so many things that I will want you to elaborate on. But
Okay.
before I do, you said something. You talked about going to school and you talked about getting the degrees and getting off into your career and being exactly who you thought you wanted to be or who you thought you really were. Tell me, was there something that created that moment, an awakening moment for you, that, wait a minute, maybe this is not who I am and who I want to be? What happened, or what started you down this path?
Well, what's interesting about that is that my love for the work I did was wholeheartedly honest. And it actually is one of the greatest parts of me. And it's no greater or no less than even the work I do now. I think and I love that's a really excellent question. I think it kind of, it fans up an even deeper question. I think sometimes when we don't understand what I like to call, there's a golden thread that runs through our lives. It's like if you had a tapestry, we look at those really ornate tapestries of a picture, and you can always look on the back of the tapestry, and of course it's a hot mess. But but usually, you have really ornate tapestries. There's just threads that just kind of run through and through, and they run through the various pictures. There was a theme in my life that I didn't realize. And the more important part of self-discovery and identifying what someone's purpose is or understanding who they are is to really understand that theme. Because what you will tend to do is get caught up in the specific pictures of one's life and start defining yourself there. The theme for me was always, it's apparent now that wasn't apparent there, is I've always been interested in what happens under the surface of things. So in the start of my life, it was the ocean. It makes sense. What happens beneath what's really happening in the deep. But it's the same thing that runs across when I look at women. What's happening under the surface? So the person is not that much different. I'm the same person I was in my previous life and now. It's just I didn't really understand the fundamental gifts and abilities that I had that related to that theme.
And so do you think that without understanding what those gifts are, and how they were really intended to be used, do you believe that you felt empty, or that there was a part of you that wasn't being tapped into?
I felt that, and that's a very good question as well. I felt that because, so it's one thing to have tools and use them, but then not really know like what you have. And I think what I like to always say is that everyone has like a tool bag. And oftentimes we'll grab one or two tools and we'll like overuse those tools. And then we'll just be like, well, what else can I build? And I think I got to a place where I built what I built, but because I didn't know how to look deeper or how to tap into like my other gifts or how to stop being a perfectionist or how to actually see my achievements and own them, things that are really important to building confidence and identity. If you can't really grasp the tools you have, then how can you have the courage to really dig deeper and to build bigger things? So that's actually how I ended up stuck, is that I was so used to using what I use, and I stopped seeing the brilliance and the ingenuity in that I just started to lose myself. So it really took me just kind of scrapping everything, what I thought I knew about myself, my opinion of myself, my misconceptions, and really getting back to the drawing board and asking the question of like fundamentally, roles aside, like who are you, chick? And that's what I really detailed in my TEDx talk, "You Are Who You Are, Not What You Do," because it really is about identifying the essence of yourself as a person. Everyone has a zone of brilliance, I like to call it. And when you figure out what that is, then that opens you up to the various highways and byways and lanes that you could possibly run in, but they all relate back to you, and the synchronicity will actually work. So
Listen, you've said a lot, and I know I just said it, and I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna have fun with this interview, but then I also know I'm gonna be sad because you have a lot to say and we only have so many minutes. I wanna, before we really dive into that topic about your TED Talk and really dive into defining yourself, I do have a couple more questions for you. And I think that this is very pivotal because basically you have defined yourself, and what you do is, I'm a mindset and clarity coach. And maybe there's a lot of people who are in the exact same place that you were in before and had no clue how to identify it. And I hope that the individuals watching now are able to see and hear through you, like, is that what I'm experiencing? I need to really tap into who I am, for the sake of the audience, explain to us, what exactly does a mindset and clarity coach do?
well, I always like to caveat most things. You kind of stumble onto, well, if you're diligent enough and if you stick to it, sometimes it takes a few iterations of oneself before you can really define yourself. So I always like to tell people, while I was on this quest to really self-identify and I got down to the nitty-gritty, I knew what direction I wanted to go, and I just started heading in that direction. So I had a custom dressmaking business while I was in research. I realized I was really talented. I could make amazing gowns, prom gowns, wedding dresses. And that's a whole nother topic, because there was a part of me that rejected my gifts because I thought my book smarts were more better use of my.
Yeah.
So when you don't really know who you are, you kind of butt heads with yourself. But as I moved along, I tried a little bit of a foray as an image consultant. I was like, okay, I'm not a style coach because I really don't care what people are wearing. And then I realized that even deeper, I care what people think. So to answer your question, as a mindset and clarity coach, my job is to help my clients, whether mostly women, I work with men as well, gain superb clarity centered around themselves. And it's really along the lines of answering two major questions that are the hardest to answer. Who are you? And then what do you want? And I find with women, my God, there couldn't be two harder questions to have to address, because we're really good at discovering who everybody else is. We're exceptional at understanding what everybody else wants. So we tend to get caught up in this hamster wheel of, oh, I'm delivering, I'm being helpful, I'm doing all this stuff because I'm catering to who people are and then what they need. And then I don't have to tell you how that story ends. Women tend to get lost on who they are, their identity, and then slowly but surely, there's no longer an attachment of authenticity to what they do. They're feeling, whether it's bitter because they've slaved and given so much of themselves away, and they're just left feeling unfulfilled. And at some point, there's a breaking point. So my job is to help, especially with entrepreneurs, is, there's so much instability into the entrepreneur world. There's so many parts you can't control. My job is to help you or my female clients to really stabilize the way they think, understand how they're wired, understand their strengths, their weaknesses, understand what their goals are, put some words to their vision, do a bunch of deep dive work that really helps them create a personal brand that's going to make them top of mind for their clients.
So you said something. I actually wrote down why women. You end up saying you work with men too, but it sounds like, the bulk of your work is women. Why women? Is it because, women tend to lose their identities in other things more commonly? Is there a reason why, the majority of your audience and who you work with is focused on women?
Well, definitely, for me, I would say I'm a version of my own ideal client, because I experienced everything that my clients dealt with. So I understand to the molecular level of what she's dealing with. And then furthermore, there's an amazing, women are I think there's a statistic says that women that really excel, especially like in business, they tend to put like 90% of what they gain is like resources into their communities, into their families. I mean, women have this amazing, uncanny ability to, I just think oftentimes we're underrated. We have this ability to manifest and make things happen, nurture and care. There's so many different roles I think as women we play, and that also though, because of how we're wired, there's so many areas and so many avenues where there can be so much brokenness and so many challenges. So I feel like especially women are like a pinnacle, both men and women are important in
Mhm.
society and family. But I just have a definitely affection in my heart because I understand some of the societal pressures that women have to deal with that aren't men don't have to relate to. I mean, a man can put a suit on every day and he's fine. He goes to work. The woman has to sit there and think about her hair. She got to think about there's different social like pressures that women have, and then there's what society is constantly feeding her as far as imagery, what she's supposed to look like, how she's supposed to sound. And the biggest challenge is, because I am a mindset coach, is oftentimes most people's challenges are actually subconscious. So they're not even aware that they're having issues or they're having a challenge in the way their attitudes, belief, and their thoughts are shifting. And when
Mhm.
you're locked up in your thoughts and they're not, you're not creating affirmations that are allowing you to really think, flow, and act in a positive, successful way, then you're just holding back your gifts. And I believe that's what actually does society the worst is when we don't really tap into all that we have to give and release it. But how do you release it? So
And
it's
that's
so important to have someone that's like a trained professional that can go in and actually see your blocks because the blind spots are many for a lot of women.
and that's the question. It's how do you see it, you know? You said something earlier today. You were talking about yourself and you made mention of not being able to recognize your own accomplishments.
Hmm.
And you were probably pointing at my, you're pointing at me, you're telling my business, right? And so was that something, is that a characteristic trait in just some type of women, the professional women, the driven woman, or is that is just common for all women because we are kind of innately not knowing how to identify ourselves?
Well, I wouldn't be one specifically just because I don't have the data. I don't tend to generalize just from my end. And that's a very good question. I will say, for instance, specifically for who I target, my target is high achieving women. Because oftentimes high achieving women don't even understand the level of high achievement that they actually give. And that oftentimes they're the ones that are subject to issues such as like self sabotage or in the well, everybody can be subject to self-sabotage. I mean the imposter syndrome, where oftentimes they're feeling like, okay, I'm climbing the ladder, do I really have talent, somebody going to find me out? And it's just that they don't know. Well, and a lot of that, which is crazy, and I think the older I get, because I realized I did work in research science, and being an African American female is, automatically put you at the bottom of the totem pole. So a lot of the feelings that women have aren't made up. I
Mm-hmm.
just think that oftentimes they don't understand what is externally impacting them because they're having to battle their own thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're thinking about it, sometimes you get them mixed up. You think it's you, and then you start getting insecure about you, and it's really you're fine, you're high performing. But what if you're dealing with a racial issue and you don't know how to kind of extinguish that? So
Mm-hmm.
there's so much coming at, I think, high achieving women. My job is to help provide that anchor and to stabilize her in the way she thinks, sees herself, so that she can actually create that fortitude and almost a fortress within herself and her confidence so she can stand out in oftentimes those really rough environments and really hold her ground and pave her way for success, because we know people aren't out there giving you opportunities. It doesn't matter how gifted, talented, but what you can do is build a personal brand that is so unique and distinctive, and it's going to be of such high value that the people that value what you have to offer will come in droves. And my job is to help shape the diamond, because every woman is a diamond, but help to polish and shape her so that she could be just that. She can attract her ideal audience effortlessly.
So, for the record, I laughed at the imposter thing, not because it sound crazy. I laughed because again, something that you're able to identify, I'm able to identify with definitely working, giving my best, but then sometimes I'm like, this isn't real. This isn't me, and hey, and this is why I love these sorts of things. Again, in season 2, we are here discussing with not just women, but the entire audience of, exactly how we can be our own level up. And in doing that, it is extremely important that we are able to identify with ourselves, to your point, being able to move out of the way. I have one more question for you, and then I want to tap into the questions that most of us cannot answer. And so right now, are you a full-time entrepreneur, or are you still working and doing things in microbiology? Tell us kind of where your life path is taking you to thus far.
Oh no, ma'am. I am full time. I've been full time for 7 years. I am celebrating my 7th year. I'm excited about that. Been an entrepreneur actually for about 15 years, and of course, I did the tandem. I had my business and my job same at that time. And so no, I didn't have that. I like to be honest about mine, and I think my clients appreciate that. I didn't have the courage to walk off my job.
Mm.
And that's the most interesting place to be at, is when you know something is like killing you on the inside. And there's nothing wrong with it. It wasn't anything wrong with the people, nothing. It was me. It was no longer fulfilling. So it takes a lot of courage to do that. And at that point, because I was so lost on identity, like, where am I going to go? What do I do? What can I possibly do? I didn't even think I had the strength to ask the question. So when the government funding ran out, I believe it or not, I was like, oh, thank you, Jesus. That's like the best thing I've ever heard. It's almost like an automatic kick out of the nest. And because I had a business there, my dressmaking business, that was kind of like my net to fall back on. And I started, building that. But I knew in my heart, I was like, oh, this isn't it. I knew I loved to make women feel amazing. So and I have very good technical construction skills. A lot of people there in the sciences are also a part artists as well. And I have very amazing technical skills. So to take a woman that was complaining about her body or her thighs, and then to put her in something that was custom for her, and to see the way her face changed. I mean, I love doing that. So I knew at that point, I was like, wait, no, there's something deeper that I like to do here. And I've always been, believe it or not, a coach. I was always a person people asked for advice. I worked with my church, working with people that went through really serious traumas, being a mentor. So it just came full circle that it was like, okay, this is what you need to do. So I've been coaching for a few years now, but it is the most natural thing, because it is, again, like I tell my clients, it's really about tapping into your zone of brilliance. When I say that it's, if we could just get women to just, a lot of them, and I work with them and I love them so much, just frantic. Everything is, I have to be doing stuff. I'm all over the place. And I feel like I'm pulled in 1,000 directions. I can't focus. I think those are telltale sign that you're really not like really plugged into you. I don't think women should be pulled all over the place. I don't think there should be so much, distortion or just so much disruption. Believe it or not, when you get to a place where you're fully focused in and you're tapped into your zone of brilliance, it's like a major amount of peace that happens, and it's a huge level of clarity. And that clarity allows you to manage your energy correctly. It allows you to create relationships with people, because within yourself, you know which tools you have to communicate and to do your work and to connect with people, that holistically you just become a better entrepreneur, and then are able to push your business further. But oftentimes we get in our way because of the misconceptions of what we think we should be doing. And trust me, I've done it all. So I can really relate and understand.
Did I just hear you say that being pulled in a million directions, being busy, does not mean that you were doing it right? Did I just hear you say that?
Warren Buffett said something years ago that changed my life. Warren Buffett said, I want you to write a list of 20 things you want to get done, over your course of your life, like major things. He said, I want you to mark out all but 5. What most people, anybody that's super successful, millionaires, billionaires, all of them, they all are very serious about protecting their energy and their time. I know I work with clients on helping them work through their energy management system, because there's not a lot of you to go around. And I believe that within ourselves, we're actually like a battery. We're able to recharge. But if you're doing all the wrong things, it's just leaking out battery acid. You know, we've all seen that battery. It's like, oh, it's all cruddy and crusted up. And
Mm-hmm.
you're not even put that in a remote. It's not even going to work. Well, there's a lot of us running around a little bit crusty and cruddy because all we do is just leak out energy, giving it to everything, anyone. But we really haven't tapped into our zone of brilliance to be able to be self-charging, funneling that energy, having that excitement, having that success. Because it's not about being mediocre. I really work with my clients on that. I don't care if you do it sort of well. We don't care about that. It's what is your highest level of performance of brilliance. And I always say that if I was in a barn full of horses and there was a unicorn, ask me which one I'm going to ride.
The unicorn.
Our job is to be the unicorn. So how do you differentiate yourself? And in order to brand, position yourself, be seen as an authority, you have to be very clear on your identity and the value that you bring to the table. And that is the part that a lot of entrepreneurs will skip over, in essence, so they can do other things like sell their product or service, create their website, do their business cards. But I'm always left asking the question of, what's your message? What's going on there? Because when it's all said and done, it's more than just your product or service that people you want to actually connect with the right clients. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of that entails you, because business is really built off of relationships and what people are able to assess and see as value that you possess.
That's absolutely amazing. And you were saying a mouthful, and I hope for those that are watching or listening in, they're able to see and hear themselves, because sometimes it is being able to identify and know where you are, where you can take that, and put it and apply it someplace, right? It's that moment of being enlightened, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
that moment of, aha, I am awake. I've never had anybody reference that particular quote from Warren Buffett, but you did say something that I have a business partner that talks about all the time is, being very cautious and aware of how you spend your time and where that time goes. And I think that is one thing that maybe we have to learn the most, because we don't keep a lot of time for ourselves. We give it out. We extend that energy. We are that corroded battery everywhere else, but where we should focus. So I want to switch gears, because we haven't really talked about this TED Talk, and you've stated two questions that most people are not able to answer, right? Hence, birthing that TED Talk that we talked about, right? You are not you Go ahead. What's the TED Talk? And let's dive into that. First, tell us the title. I was gonna say it. I'm like, that's her thing. Tell us the title, and tell us what is the meaning behind the title.
Sure. First of all, it's a pleasure to be able to give a TEDx talk. As you know, TED is like huge organization. When I was in research, I was always watching a TED talk, and TEDx's are little mini locations where thought leaders come together and share ideas. So I was really excited when I got picked for that. And because I actually applied twice. First time I applied, I did not get selected. And the second
Hmm.
time I applied, I honed in. This is why identity is important. I honed in and I shifted in my identity. And I think at that point, I had a very big eureka moment on what I wanted to represent. And it's very interesting because that all came together and then I got selected. But my title is You Are Who You Are, Not What You Do. And of course, that is the essence around what I coach and how I coach and the premise behind my coaching practice. But the whole idea centered around that is just as the title explains, is that we are more than the substance of the roles that we play in. And I think I love something I think you kind of alluded to earlier. The most important thing a person can do is pause. I find it interesting that people don't like take time for self-care and relaxation, which, because of course, in our mind, if we're not busy doing something, we're really not contributing. But what people don't realize is that, oh, is that a self point? It's okay. I've been there. um, but what you realize is the greatest investment into oneself, because obviously I always tell my clients, it's like you cannot come up with an idea when your head is in a vice grip. It's impossible. So that's what explains why if you take a shower, you notice you're in there showering up, you're relaxed, you start thinking of all these ideas. You're like, wait, where did that come from? Imagine giving yourself a whole day or a weekend or an hour a day. It really does help decompress. But back to the title, the importance of that is that, if you can get people to stop and think, like, who am I? Just answer that question, because we are human beings, not human doings. And I think we just settle for the secondary part of just do. But it's really about being. Like, am I comfortable in my own skin? Who am I? What makes me phenomenal? And, when you start asking those questions, as I like to do with my coaching clients, because we go deep beneath the layer, I'm telling you, they come up like a whole new person. It's amazing. But we start asking those questions, then you start getting down to the nitty gritty and the true essence of who someone is. Because I like to say that diamonds, I can't walk down the street and find one on the sidewalk. I'll never find a ruby that way, and I definitely won't find pearl or oil unless it trickles up from the ground. The source of things that are most valued are deep within. So my talk was centered around really taking this idea and analogy of a diamond and really kind of fleshing it out a little bit more, because most people don't realize a diamond that comes straight out the ground actually looks like a shard of glass. You kind of can't even tell it's a diamond. So what that really spells out is that it really does take cutting and polishing to make us into who we are, to get the best value out of us.
Mhm.
And if that's the case for an actual diamond, again, that's the same thing for us. How do we shift in our thinking where we're actually able to look at and ask the questions that's going to allow us to take the greatest shape and form and become all that we can practically, we're meant to be, and really
Mhm.
tap purpose. So I love that my talk is kind of, again, it talks about the diamond and it talks about other elements that we fall trapped to. Whereas I always like to think about like an ant, for instance, and how much strength the ant has. I think they can lift 500 to 1,000 times its body weight. And I always thought if I could have a conversation with an animal or an insect, I would love to just ask an ant if it knows how strong it is. Because it's the same question I ask women every day. Do you know how you just did that? You're over there lifting mountains, buildings, making stuff happen, saving corporations. But then we look in the mirror, if we can look in the mirror, because there's many of us can't even stand the sight of ourselves because we don't think we're enough. We don't like the extra weight. And you can see the dichotomy there, like the complete contrast. How is it that you can use these tools, but you yourself not be enamored or not be in awe of your brilliance? And it just really speaks to the disconnect that can happen in life. And I've been there. And my job is to, a car battery sometimes needs a jump. My job is to help give people that jump so they can spark again and really get to moving in a greater direction they even imagine in their business.
That's dead on, and it's key to all of us and all of our being able to live. I remember there was a time in my life I hated the mirror. Not anymore. Not even with this COVID way. You're not keeping me out the mirror, and it's
Yeah.
understanding there's a level of growth there, honestly, because we can love the world and love what we do, and like you said, look at the mirror and absolutely resent ourselves. So you said a lot. I remember the day that I talked to you for the first time, right? And we were talking about the show and you being a host, and you said something to me. You said, when I talk to most women and I ask, you know, who you are, you then answer the question they typically say. So tell me that, or share with the audience, when you ask women that question, typically what do they say to you?
Oh my gosh, that was actually part of my TEDx talk. That was one of my audience interactions. I asked the question, how did I do it? I asked first, what do you do? And then they, of course, answer. And then I asked, who were they? And most people answer that two different questions the same way. If you ask people who they are, they naturally say, oh, well, I'm a doctor, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a librarian. They answer it based on the role that they play. And when you really stop and pause and think about it, those are two separate questions. So most cases, a lot of high achieving, well, just women in general that are actually working and out there, especially in the entrepreneurial scape, my playground, is that they really don't have a great strong sense of who they are. Once again, they have a sense of what they can do,
Mhm.
and it's so easy to kind of like spit that out, but they don't have a sense of who they are as a person. And when you don't really have context for who you are, then that leaves a bunch of other questions like what makes you tick? How do you think? What are your strengths? What can you do that other people can't do? What experiences do you have that you can leverage and really infuse in your business? But they're so busy thinking in the terms of, okay, I got the product, service, I got mechanics, I got to do this, I got to do that. And they're leaving the best asset that they have in their business, which is themselves, to just sit on a shelf.
Mhm.
No wonder women get burned out because, again, if you don't know how you're wired, you don't know how you function, if you don't know your identity, then what are you really putting out there? Just this idea of yourself. And we know just having an idea is not the same thing as having a true identity and being able to leverage that to grow your business. They're
So
really,
I'm sorry, I cut you off.
oh, no, I'm just saying they're really missing out on themselves, and everyone else is really missing out on all that they could possibly even contribute on a higher level.
You know, it's even sitting here, some of the areas myself personally, I can tell you I've touched, and there are some things that I'm like, right? And so if you had to obviously give some tips and pointers to the women who are watching, number one, they should be reaching out to you so that you can help them find themselves. But when you were talking about yourself, you said you you saw and you recognized that you were feeling a way and that you were going through things, and you started to use some tools to help you really tap into who you are. What would be some tools that you would share with women today that they can use to start building their confidence, or even building and recognizing truly who they are?
That's a good question, I think, and I always like to be fair with that answer. And you're absolutely right. What made it easy for me, because it's no easy task, is because I'm actually equipped to do it. My superpower is personal growth. So, and I know that's kind of like my purpose for myself and my calling for other people. So, what I do is actually really easy. But for other people, if that's not their gift, it's really hard
Mhm.
to kind of manufacture that. But there are, in addition to, I would recommend, whether it's me or not, of course, I'm available, but definitely reach out to someone else, because what we have naturally as people are called blind spots. It's the same reason why you can't look me in the face and tell me what's on your back. I mean, your head does not rotate 360 degrees or 180 degrees. You can't see back there. We all have blind spots. And oftentimes we don't know how to navigate those. So it really does take someone that's on the exterior part of you
Mhm.
who's equipped and skilled to help you. But with that thought in mind, in addition to working with a coach or professional, you can, to get the ball rolling a little bit, think about the stuff people tell you. Because one thing about it is repetition and patterns aren't false. If you always have people tell you something along the lines of, man, you're really good with your hands, or man, or you're always getting a compliment off of something you do, or wow, you're exceptional with numbers. What the tendency is to normalize gifts. That's what I did for years. It's like, well, anybody could do that. It's like, no, they can't. Not the way you do it. So we have to be willing to ask. So one of the things I actually have my clients do before I do my deep analytical dive and I walk through my program, one of the things I'll have is surface is ask them to have them ask about 5 people that know them very well, what are their strengths? That's a very simple way. And again, that's a little bit more surface because I do a lot more deep diving, but it's a great way to get you to start being mindful of what you might be missing. The thing is this, if we play really in we play in the playground of our brilliance all the time. We just don't know where we're at. We don't have context because we look out of our eyes and we see other people, and which is the worst, we get so enamored and obsessed with what they do because we can see their brilliance so well
Mhm.
that we start thinking we don't have any. but we forget other people can see ours. Or we may have it, and because we don't know how to nurture it, we tend to hold it inside. Or, as I like to do when I work with clients as a mindset coach, we might have traumas or might have dealt with failure from a situation. So it causes us to repress ourselves, our personalities, things that just really blocks up and keeps the brilliance from coming out. So we got to deal with some of those blocks as well. And I love that as a mindset coach, dealing with the imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, dealing with self-consciousness, lack of confidence, self-esteem issues. I think I heard someone say it best. If you had a broke arm, I could say, oh, Shonda, your arm looked like it's hanging off. And you're like, oh, well, maybe I need to fix that. But what do you do when this is broke? It's not always as easy to see. And I know when I slipped down my slope, I was this high achieving woman. I graduated top honors in high school and college, and I was good to go. And you threw a challenge at me and I would kill it. But because I didn't know myself and I didn't know my environment, and I put all this pressure that I had to be perfect, I started eating away at my own self and my own confidence. And that caused my own problems. So I started to break up here, but I didn't even notice the cracks when they started happening, because it's very subtle. And I always like to ask a question, especially with women. I said, when you were younger, how were you? We talked through kind of how they were young, and a lot of them were fearless, boy, or they had these abilities, and they noticed, like, I don't do that anymore. I noticed I'm a lot more scared to jump out there now. And then that is the point right there. We're like, hey, we got to go in and fix that, because she's still in there.
Mm-hmm.
She just got blocked. The castle fell down. We got to clear out the debris and rebuild. But she's still in there.
I talk about that inner child all the time to people, right? They don't go anywhere, right? Where is that person? So we're getting ready to wrap. I knew, and I don't want us to close without talking about this program and all of this other stuff. I knew that this interview was going to be great, and these 45 minutes were not going to be enough. But listen, you've done an amazing job of talking about tapping into you, right? You've talked about things that maybe someone has not thought about prior to this moment. You talked about high achieving women. I want us to first have you define what is a high achieving woman.
Ooh, well, that's a woman with extremely high standards, I like to say, and high capabilities. She knows kind of from the jump that the way in which she sees her life, her world, her actions, and her goals, they're just out the gate higher. Does it make her better than anybody else? Of course not. But there's just this internal drive where no one else is creating that for her. I always like to joke, those are my women that were, 100% is fine. They're over there trying to aim for 130, 140. And I tell them, I was like, you need to, release some of that pressure. It's like blowing up a balloon, and it's about let's just release the pressure. Take a 97, be happy. But and it's just, again, but that drive is amazing, because that drive is what pushes them to go places they hadn't gone, reach new heights. But that drive, and if it's full force and it's not, if it becomes toxic, it's also the drive that actually can do them in. So it's really about helping them. I like to say we have to recalibrate their scale. If you go to like the grocery store and the scale doesn't work, and you put your stuff in, for a lot of women, they put their accomplishments in the scale, and to them, the scale still reads 0. I'm like, I didn't do anything. It's like, baby, your scale is messed up. You need to go talk to people and get insight from them. Recalibrate your scale. I always joke with my husband, I never ask how I do on stuff. Not myself, because I'm crazy. I know what I'm going to say. I'm like, I could have did it better. I ask other people, what did you think? Yeah. What's your insight? And then I use that to calibrate my own self, because I'm high achieving. I always see things a little bit different.
I do have a business partner that can help me reset, because sometimes when I get done, they be like, you did a good job, man. Did I? Right. And I'll have people help me reset. Hopefully they understand, because I can be very critical on me. So I have to be reset from time to time. With that being said, again, it's a pleasure having you. For those who are listening now, for those who are going to listen on the replay or even on the podcast, we want ladies to know, number one, how should they even know they should be reaching out to you, and how do they reach out to you, and exactly what do you offer?
Absolutely. The whether they should reach out to me is real simple. The situation with that, if you're going through any place where you feel stuck, whether that's I don't know what step I need to take in my business, to I want to shift, maybe I want to rebrand, down to I don't know how to connect with my ideal client. Who is my ideal client? What are my strengths? How can I really take this business and position myself or create a personal brand? Anything that you have a question on, or you feel like you're really gridlocked, you don't know which direction to take, that's just being stuck. And it just means that you need clarity. So as a mindset and clarity coach, I help in that capacity. To start with, please just start by visiting my website. And you can definitely sign up for my newsletter, and there's means to contact me there. I'm self-branded, so everything's at victoriabaylor.com, www.victoria, like Queen Victoria, Baylor, like Baylor University, .com. And you can start there, and there's just some helpful information on the site. Definitely reach out. I do clarity calls with clients that really want to hear a little bit more how I can support them. And then I have specialized programs that take my clients from start to finish to really help them understand what is their value, what is their identity. So if we're talking about business, it's so important to know what are you bringing that's valuable, because people pay for value. And if you're not being compensated enough for your value, it's probably because you don't know how to compound your value and make it where it looks really important and valuable to those people that need it. So it's about getting clear on your value, your identity, and then I work with them on brand communication. How do you put yourself out there so that your message is clear? Because I think someone has a state, I've heard it, confused money don't spend, or when people are confused, basically they don't put their hands in their pocketbook and pay you. So oftentimes people have just a level of confusion within their business, and they're wondering why they can't convert clients. Is because there's a lack of clarity. So like, how do we clear out and make you crystal clear to the people that need the value you have to offer?
That is good. And I just wrote down confused money don't spend. Thank you. That quote's going on my Facebook page.
I think I might have changed it a little bit. That's my doctored, 8 o'clock version. But you get my drift.
I get it. That is absolutely amazing. I've more than enjoyed you on the show. I know that from talking to you in this short period of time, this was not about me, but I found me in this conversation. And so I definitely know that I will be reaching out to you because it is absolutely imperative that we understand that clarity, right? And being able to build business and abundance and everything else thereafter. I am going to move you into the backstage. You and I can exchange some information briefly after. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the show, but I do want to thank you so much for everyone that's listening. You can find her by her name, Victoria Baylor. So www.victoriabaylor.com. I've been on the website. She actually even has a quiz that you can take, and a bunch of other cool things. So hang out for me, Victoria. I am going to go ahead and wrap things up. But it has definitely been a pleasure having you and hosting you on today's episode. So there you have it, everyone. The amazing Victoria Baylor. I hope that as you listen to this, what was important is that you identified something in it and something with yourself. Not 100% of things that people say have to be you, but do you have a business? Do you have a brand? Are you afraid to step outside of maybe your corporate job? You've heard what she's had to say. Did you identify with it? The whole entire theme, this whole entire season is nothing but covering how you can be exactly your own level up. How are we able to be our own level up? Is exactly by taking action to improve ourselves, to tap into things that we haven't tapped into before. I am here every single week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Central Time. It is more than a pleasure for me to not only host my amazing guests, but it is a pleasure to be in front of you, having you as an audience join in to listen to what is being brought to you. Our goal is to, again, empower, enhance, and take your life to the next level. Resources are available to you each and every single day, and we're just bringing them to you on a forefront. Next week's show will be back, same bad time, same bad channel. We are absolutely excited about next week's guest, and this thing just keeps getting better. No guest better or greater than the other, but together creating a seamless story that can obviously help you apply your life and do the things that you need to do. You guys know who I am. I'm your wonderful, amazing host. Definitely excited to have you. If you're wondering where you can find us, this is where. Of course, there is my Facebook page, the wonderful Miss Sharonda McDaniel. But in order to stay in the loop on this episode, in order to stay in the loop on all the other things that the network is bringing, make sure you go to the Facebook page and follow Dropping Knowledge Network. Do that now. Don't miss out. We're bringing you things to empower you. We are bringing you information that can help you take your life to the next level. All you have to do is tune in. You can find us on YouTube, Dropping Knowledge Network. Go subscribe. Don't miss out on this information. You have the ability to be in the know. I will see you guys all next week. Stay safe and God bless.